Well, this one guy, he opted in and I never talked to him before. And he just opted into a phone conversation and he said, "Oh, you know what? I got about 1 year and then I'm retired. And can you do this for me? Can you do that for me?" So sometimes it can be a 4-year-old lead that comes back and the guy's like, "Oh, here's $1 million." And his affinity to us is nobody else wrote the book for firemen. I'm the guy,
Yeah.
I'm the guy that wrote the book for firemen's deferred comp. So I must be the expert, even though I'm in Chicago.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. It's Stuart Bell here, and today we have Scott Tucker. Scott, how's it going, buddy?
Oh, very well. Thank you.
Fantastic. I'm excited to run through this because your cover, which I'll put a link to in the show notes so people can see it, the cover of your book's fantastic because it just so clearly cuts through the noise of what it does. You're kind of in the estate planning world of the books talking about estate planning and that whole financial advisor. It's such a cliche of a couple walking down the beach holding hands in happy retirement, but you'll go from the other side. Why don't we start off, give people a bit of background, what it is you do, where you're based, and we'll jump off from there.
Our company's in Chicago. We are federally licensed, so we can help folks all throughout the United States and its territories, green card holders and citizens. Being in Chicago, most of our clients are in Chicagoland, but we have clients in Florida, Texas, California, Michigan, Wisconsin, and wherever else. We start working with folks generally when they're 55 to 70 years of age. There's different ways that we get new clients. One way that works real well is we hold local workshops in the community, libraries, community centers, that sort of thing. These are usually a kind of Tuesday evening at 6 p.m. for about an hour and a half. We usually support that through a direct mail piece and then also some digital ads on Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah,
So what's nice about that, we get people to a place, so it's easier to get them to another place that's 5 or 10 minutes away, get them to our office. So that works really well that way to get face-to-face meetings, which are most effective. But what we started doing maybe about 3 years ago, I wrote a book called with 90 Minute Books. I've written a couple books with 90 Minute Books. Probably about 4 years ago, I wrote a book called, I forget the title, right? The Complete Guide to Fireman's Deferred Comp, something like that. The Fireman's
yeah,
Guide to Deferred Comp. And a fireman, especially in Chicagoland, they're in the union. And one of their benefits is they have an opportunity to use a 457B, which is a deferred comp plan. And it's not unusual to meet a fireman that's put away like 900 grand in a deferred comp plan. And that's a
right.
nice asset to manage along with other assets they may have. And then I wrote a book called we keep having people complain about Illinois and its taxes and the corruption and how it's so expensive to retire here. So I wrote another book with 90 Minute Books called Escape Illinois, Should I Stay or Should I Go? And that one also has a neat cover where it has the Chicago skyline with chain link fence and barbed wire. So it's got Chicago skyline in the background and the chain link fence and all that says Escape Illinois. But it's not just about escaping Illinois. It's should I stay or should I go? So we fill folks in on what would be the pros and cons of leaving or staying, if they're going to go, how they ought to go about it. There's some little wrinkles in tax planning that they can perform as an Illinois resident, especially if they're going to go to a state that taxes retirement accounts like Wisconsin. So Illinois doesn't
Right.
tax retirement accounts. So there's wrinkles in that book. Then the most recent book that I wrote with 90 Minute Books, that just maybe came out maybe a month ago, if that, is I was going to call it Your Illinois Estate Protected, but that's really boring. So instead, I titled it because we have an estate tax in Illinois that affects individuals and couples that have an estate or will have an estate of $4 million and one penny or more. There's a substantial Illinois estate tax, so there are ways to plan around that and not have to pay it legally and all that. So that book, I called it Illinois Grave Robbers. And on the cover, there's a cemetery and there's a raven and there's tombstones and there's somebody digging up a grave. And the back cover kind of matches that kind of art. And so what we've done with those books, especially not so much with the firemen's one. The firemen's one, we were running ads on Facebook some years ago. But when with the Illinois Escape Illinois book, we started running 2 minute, we call 2 minute look lives. It looks like a live interview on TV with a real TV host, and it's somebody who used to be a TV host. But these 2 minute look lives, we have these different topical each weekend on Saturdays and Sundays. We run these in Chicago on morning TV news. Somewhere in the break, there's a 2 minute kind of mock interview.
Yeah,
And on that one, we have a graphic that comes out once you get a free copy of my latest book, Escape Illinois, Should I Steer, Should I Go? And the complete retirement decoded toolkit. And then they can scan a QR code to go to the website to get it. They can go to the website. They can call in. to the call center. We have a really good call center. They call it sounds like it's us. And the other thing they can do is they can text the keyword into that number and it'll chat bot back and forth with them, get all their info. What ends up happening is then the call center gets after them. Either if they get the live call, the call center gets them their goodies, but tries to get them right onto our phone calendar immediately for 15 minutes for free with one of our financial planners in the next week. If the call center misses them because they went to the website or they texted back and forth or whatnot, the call center we use, they outbound call them 7 times over 14 days to get them on the phone
Okay.
to get them on the phone calendar. And the phone calendar is really what we're trying to get them. It's nice to get them the goodies, but really to get them on the phone calendar so we can have a brief conversation. That's really what we're after. And we're finding that folks are seeing me on TV for 2 minutes on the weekend and they live an hour from us. And people in Chicago don't like to drive a lot because the traffic's really bad. We've got people from an hour away become clients over Zoom or from an hour away come drive in to see the office and see we have a little radio TV or radio podcasting studio type of thing set up.
Yeah.
See it, touch it, feel it. So the Escape
Yeah.
Illinois book's been really valuable for that. We've been able to get leads off of TV for cost per lead of $40.
Wow.
Not all of them turn into phone appointments, not all of them turn into Zooms or into clients, but it's been working really well for us. So the new
How's that?
book, yeah.
How's that one compared with the seminars, the education events? Do you get a vibe for either the different overall conversion rates or whether people from the TV ad are just longer burning and the people who actually turn up are closer to decision?
The people that go to a workshop, what's really great about them, you have to do a mailer and you have to do the
Mm.
Facebook and Instagram ads and all that. What's really good about once you get somebody to the workshop, those are the most serious people. Those are the people that are going to go somewhere. And so what's really good about them, they're more likely to go somewhere again, to go to our office, have a face-to-face meeting. And we're
Right.
always going to do best in a face-to-face meeting, although we do really well on phone and on Zoom. But getting right from the workshop to maybe sometimes we have the workshop on a Tuesday evening and then the next Wednesday, that next day at 10 a.m. Sometimes we have people come right from the workshop to the office. We've had people do that from Tuesday night to Wednesday morning and become a client right then,
Yeah.
which is ideal. Sometimes we generally have to get them from the workshop to get them into the office in the next 2 weeks. If it goes longer than 2 weeks, it's just not going to happen. They're not going to come in. So people say, well,
Yeah.
how about after this holiday, or how about, in 3 weeks? That person's not going to come in. So really, even if they say they are, it's really the 2 week ticker. On the TV, the next book that we have, my most recent book that we have now is Illinois Grave Robbers. And we're going to be in a few weeks, we're going to be recording new 2 minute look live TV spots. And that will be part of the offer. It'll say, get Scott's books, Illinois Grave Robbers, Escape Illinois, and the Retirement Dakota Toolkit. And it'll all be, one big bundle on the screen. It'll be more persuasive than it
Yeah.
already. And we're also going to record 4 30-minute TV shows. And we've been working on a couple stations here to get some good rates for that. 30-minute TV show in my field, financial planning, retirement planning, 30-minute TV show does tend to be a slower burn type of lead, where the 2 minute look live gets you a lot of leads that might not be the right quality that you want. And then the 30-minute, they may watch a show like 3 4 weeks and then finally call. They're a little slower to act because I think
Yeah.
because on 2 minute look live, it's like, here's some information between myself
It's
and the
now.
host, and then here's a bundle of stuff. So you get a lot of opt-ins, but then that's a lot of, they may not all be real serious. They might just want free books.
Yeah. What's that? We've had a few clients who do particularly in financial services, who do like the look live type short 2 minute slots. I don't think I've ever heard anyone talk about the longer 30-minute long duration pieces. So is that kind of like a Avocant type, how to make you rich, like a deep dive with individual people, or is it a narrative
Oh,
arc across
oh,
all of the
like
episodes? Or?
the format of the show.
Yeah,
So the show, what's been really hot in financial planning, retirement planning, it used to be Social Security timing, Social Security techniques, and all this sort of thing. So just in round numbers, baby boomers right now are 60 to 80 years old. And we can argue about exact ages, but they're
yeah,
about 60 to 80 years of age right now. And there are Social Security decisions to be made between like 62 and 70. So you've got the older baby boomers are already past 70. They've already made their decision. The younger baby boomers might be 60 to 70, and some of them have already made their decision, especially in the upper 60s. So
Right.
now what we're targeting, we target 55 to 70 years of age tends to be the sweet spot for gain, to start with a client. So now the 55 to 60-year-olds, those are Gen X. So
Right.
they behave differently. They don't go to workshops as easily. They do more online stuff. That's why we've been doing more YouTube and things like this too. But yeah, so the 30-minute show is going to be all that to say, Social Security is kind of gone by us. Now what's hot is estate planning. And because you think of the baby boomers are 60 to 80, and that's that big lump of population in the US, 60 to 80. When you get into the Gen X, like I'm 53, the Gen X are say 60 to 40. There's not as many of
Yeah.
them, and they're not old enough yet. A lot of them, the 55 to 60 are old enough for us, but the ones that are 40 years old are not really our market.
Yeah.
So the TV show is going to be focused on estate planning primarily. We'll talk about some other things, but it's going to be the Illinois Grave Robbers book, the Escape Illinois book, and the Retirement Dakota Toolkit. But that's the direction of where things are going in retirement planning is people are asking us more and more about estate planning, so we're changing with the times.
And that switch between kind of like the baby boomers to Gen X going from Social Security to estate planning, is that how much of that do you think is just Gen X not necessarily believing in Social Security because they've been told all their life it's about to run out next week, and
Oh,
maybe their
they
financial
are.
situation is different because they've got the generation above and the generation below. They're kind of sandwiching a little bit.
Social Security is something nobody ever talks about. The millennials, and we'll say they're roughly 40 to 20 years old. So that's just to give us round numbers. It's easiest to generations are generally 20 years. So say the
Yeah.
millennials are 40 to 20, they're a bigger generation. They're like the boomers. And I can't remember if they might even be bigger than the boomers. They're a large generation. They're much bigger than Gen X. What's going to save Social Security are the millennials. They are going to
Right.
pay for my retirement. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, the Gen X are very, oh, I'm not going to get it. But I'll tell you what, when they turn 62 or 70 or whatever, when they get close to 62, they're going to start asking questions about it. How do I get it? How much can I
Yeah.
get? How can I maximize it? How can I get it without paying federal income tax on it? So
Yeah.
they can all poo-poo it. I'm not going to get it. But when you turn 62, you start
Suddenly
paying
they'll be more
attention and saying, hey,
interested.
and
Yeah.
knock, knock, I've been paying into this thing, even though the money's been going out the back door. I've been paying into this thing. But what's gonna save Social Security is going to be the millennials, and that's not been spoken about a lot.
Right. It's actually a good demonstration as well of an idea that we talk about a few times, this idea of selling people what they need and sorry, telling people what they want and delivering what they need. This separation between, I call it topic bridging sometimes, like the conversation that's going on and ultimately the thing that actually has to happen might not really be the exact same thing, but unless you get into a conversation here, you're never going to have a chance to discuss it here. So do you find that with people, they come in with preconceived notions that aren't necessarily lined up, or the bridge between what you actually know needs to happen and what you write in the book or what you deliver in the seminar or what you say on the TV show, is it a one for one correlation, or do you really have to think about pivoting from, okay, this is the conversation I need to start with, and ultimately we need to end up here?
There is a bit of what is the sexy object? What is the bait that the people will, we want to go fishing for a certain type of fish. What kind of bait do we use? Social
Right.
Security has gotten us the right people over the years because it's getting those people 62 to 70, and that's prime time for us. They're leaving a job or they're turning in the US, if you turn 59 and a half, your 401k or whatever employer plan you have at 59 and a half, even if you're still on the job, you can do what's called an in-service rollover to an IRA and such. So that's prime time for us. So Social Security is fit in that proper window. You could also do Medicare seminars, so those are kind of regulated how you do those. We've not done that so much because they work well enough, I guess, but there's a lot of restriction on what you can talk about in a Medicare seminar. Estate planning, a lot of financial planners aren't talking about it. Most folks are at a big box firm like a Fidelity, Schwab, Vanguard, or whatnot, and or Wells Fargo or Chase or Bank of America. Those firms only want their advisors to do one thing in particular, usually, and usually what it is to sell that firm's brand of mutual funds. So what can happen is, say JP Morgan Chase, their advisors, really what the advisors are there to do is to sell the JP Morgan brand of mutual funds. And that's nothing, I'm not slandering them or slamming them, but
No,
that's
it
what
is
they're
what it
doing.
is.
And
Yeah.
so a lot of folks that have a financial planner, maybe they have an Edward Jones or Chase Bank or Schwab or whatnot, those employees of those big box firms have a gag order, what they can talk about. They're told just to focus on the investments. But that's only one of the five critical areas for retirement planning. You also have to have tax planning for retirement. And those other firms do not allow their advisors to give any tax planning advice. So what's
Oh,
great about
interesting.
tax planning opportunities, especially for baby boomers or Gen X folks, that if you have most of your money saved in tax deferred accounts, tax planning may be able to say if you have $1 million IRA or 401k or any tax deferred plan like that. If you have $1 million in a tax deferred plan with Roth conversions and Section 7702 conversions and other things, typically we could save a client family about $500,000 in unnecessary federal income tax.
Right.
And that also involved in that is getting taxes off of their Social Security benefits because a lot of folks are going to end up paying up to 85, paying federal income tax and up to 85% of their Social Security. The other thing people need that they don't know is they need help with Medicare plans. They don't know the difference between a lot of times between Medicare Advantage and Medicare Supplement. They don't know they need to have a Medicare drug card even if they don't take prescriptions, or else they get a penalty later. Some folks are concerned about long-term care planning, so we show them how to use a Medicaid Asset Protection Trust. And that's a real sexy topic because nobody wants to buy nobody wants to buy long-term care insurance. The premiums are crazy. The carriers, some of them are unstable.
Right.
You don't know if you're going to use it. So the opportunity to talk about Medicaid Asset Protection Trust, where you could have Medicaid pay for your long-term care and actually go to a good facility, not a crappy place. A lot of folks don't know that wills don't avoid probate. So in the area of estate planning, a lot of folks don't know that if they have a will, they're not all set because their estate has to go through probate. In Cook County, where we're located, we have clients in different places, but in Cook County, Illinois, probate's taking about 14 months on average. It's a public process. If you leave money to your
Wow.
kid, it gets published. Everybody knows what your kids got. I can go down to the Daily Center downtown. I can pull your file from your probate and I can see, oh, this kid got 500 grand and this kid got 500. And I can go after those kids with who knows what kind of scams or whatnot. So you're really exposing your
Yeah.
kids. Trusts avoid probate. So we teach all about how that works. Also, South Dakota Dynasty Trust, Cook Islands Trust, a bunch of things that other advisors aren't talking about. And that's in the book, Illinois Grave Robbers, available on Amazon. And then in the area of income planning, most folks left to their own devices are filing for Social Security at 62, working to 65. They're getting it all messed up. They're not working long enough in many cases. Filing for Social Security while they're still working. They're putting a cap on their Social Security benefits. If they have a surviving spouse, they're potentially harming their spouse. So there's all these things people need. And once we have one of these workshops and we kind of tie it all together, like that I just did there in that little abbreviated presentation,
Yeah.
then they say, "Oh, I came here for estate planning. The topic we teach on is estate planning and taxes. I thought we were just going to talk about wills. I thought we were just going to talk about taxes on money left to my kids." They didn't realize all these other things they needed, and they're like, "Why hasn't my either they're a do-it-yourselfer and
Right.
they haven't gotten it all done, or they have an advisor and they start asking themselves, why is my advisor not talking about this?" And
Yeah.
we do gently point out in the workshop, you're not hearing this from your advisor. If you have one right now, if they are an employee of Schwab, Fidelity, Vanguard, Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, whoever we can think of, Edward Jones, because
Yeah.
they have a gag order on them what they can and cannot talk about. They don't want to get them to be a
So,
tax advice or estate planning advice.
how many people across the board have any idea of the breadth of the problems that are out there? Kind of trying to get to kind of is it an unknown problem or a known problem? Do they know there's something, but they just don't realize the extent of it? Or are most people blissfully ignorant because it just never comes up in conversations for the last 40 years?
Well, I ask you, where did you go to school when you were a kid? What country?
UK.
In the
Yeah. So I
UK.
was in the UK until 10 years ago.
And when you say UK, do you mean England? Specific
Wales and England.
Wales.
Yeah.
Oh, you're Welsh.
Yeah.
When you were growing up, just out of curiosity, when I was in the Navy, I was stationed in Scotland for 2 years, so I have a
Okay.
little bit of familiarity with the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So when you were growing up in Wales, did your teachers did they teach you a lot all the financial stuff you needed to know?
No. And in fact, I don't think there was any real.
It's almost like a conspiracy, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
It's there are people in the know and the people in the not, right? When I grew up, I went to
Yeah.
public school in DeWitt, Michigan, and very good public school system. It was very heavily focused on sending all the kids to college, which kind of now we scratch our heads and say, why would we do that? who's gonna fix my air conditioner if everybody just goes to college and gets a degree in managing
Yes.
people, and who do they manage? The people that also got a degree in managing people, so then they get a master's degree in managing people to manage the people. So yeah, in the US also, there's not a great financial literacy in our schools.
Mm,
I went to a pretty darn good school system, and I remember the closest we got to financial literacy is in seventh grade, I think it was, seventh grade math. The teacher taught us how to fill out a 1040 EZ form, which is your tax return in the US.
right.
And it was useful to learn that in seventh grade. It was a neat thing. But were they really teaching me anything about how to be wealthy? Or were they just teaching me to voluntarily file a form with the government to,
Right. Not
to
be
pay my
late.
taxes, right? That's really what they're
Yeah.
teaching me to do. Or to fill out a form that fools me into thinking if I get money back that I'm getting free money, that really I'm just getting my own money back with zero interest. But they don't teach that generally in the US. They don't teach that much here. There is a gentleman you might or might not be familiar with, Dave Ramsey. He's controversial with financial planners because he doesn't his investment and insurance advice can be a little off. Generally, though, what I like about he has a program for schools. A lot of schools are using it in the U.S. And what that's big on is don't borrow money and live debt free and a lot of that stuff. But when I was
Right.
growing up, I graduated high school in 90. When I was growing up in say the 80s, we weren't taught anything about how to attain any wealth, or really we were told to save kind of. If you think
Yeah.
if you get to it, you should save, and then a
Save
lot
it
of
if there's
it.
any left.
Yeah, the teachers back then, I don't recall the teachers back then having a deferred comp program. I believe when I was growing up, all they had was a pension and they had good pensions.
Mm.
And so the dangerous thing about getting your advice from teachers, their advice is to go to school and to get a degree. Like
Right.
this is a
Become
kind
a
of
teacher
funny
with a
one.
solid pension.
Why don't you go? Why don't you go to Michigan State and get a degree in English? Like I can already speak English. I don't know why I would do that. Yeah, get a degree in English so that you get a master's in English and you can teach English. Like
Yeah.
there's a comedian who has a joke about that. Like, what kind of pyramid scheme is this? Uh, but so our teachers are well-meaning, but they themselves aren't on a track for wealth generally. Now, nowadays they can be if they really focus on it, if they're real frugal, they put money in their deferred comp, then they get their pension and they do all these things. If they're really disciplined, teachers are actually good clients for us in many cases. But the advice you get from a teacher would be the advice that makes a teacher. And
Yeah. Get a good
maybe,
job and put your
yeah,
head down and
you might be familiar with High Point University, Nita Cobain. He
yeah.
founded the Great Harvest Bread Company. His school back when he did it in, geez, was that late 90s maybe? His school, High Point University, I believe might have been the first school in the United States to teach entrepreneurship, where
Wow.
the other schools were teaching business management.
Yeah.
So I got a degree in business management because there was no entrepreneurship program offered. And you think about business management, it makes you a good employee to manage somebody else's business. It doesn't make you an entrepreneur. So
Yeah.
I don't know where we got
Different
off
skill
on all
set.
that, but yeah, we don't teach anything in
It's
school about how wills. They say, oh yeah, I should get a will. They don't tell you the will's going to go through probate, how long probate takes, how much it costs. And
right.
on the low end in Cook County is $5,000. If you have a more substantial estate, there's a whole percentage scale. It can be tens of thousands of dollars to go through probate.
Yeah.
So yeah,
How
we're
much
not
of it
caught anything.
how much of it is how much does the window close as people get closer and closer to the either passing away at the end of lifetime kind of thing? But is it definitely the case that people would be better served by doing this sooner rather than later?
Yeah.
Like is time a component that you really start running out of options as the window narrows?
Yeah, we had a client lived nearby the office. A few months ago, she passed away at 93, and she was running it. The Illinois state tax affects you if you go one, if an individual or couple goes one penny over $4 million net worth. So that's including your house and everything. And so she was that we kept, hey, we got to get the state plan in order and this sort of thing. And it didn't get done. And then so we get a call a month before she's going to pass. Hey, there's a month, she has a month to live. Her son was a client also. So, mom's got a month to live. We need to reshuffle some things. And we'd been on them to reshuffle some things. You've got to, in Illinois, well, for Illinois estate tax and for federal estate tax, they both have a 3-year look back. So you need to,
Oh,
if you're
wow.
going to get assets out of, if you're going to gift some assets to an irrevocable trust to minimize the size of your estate, especially for the Illinois estate tax, you have to do it 3 years before you pass. Another
Right.
thing that people need to do is if we have a lot of folks now that are losing cognition, and sometimes it's happening at 60 years of age, not 80 years of age.
Yeah.
If you are going to need long-term care, there's a 5-year look back on a Medicaid asset protection trust. So we need to reposition your assets legally into irrevocable trust, the majority of your money, 5 years before you need care. And then you'll look broke on paper, and Medicaid will pay for your long-term care. I know a lady that her grandmother had Alzheimer's for 14 years. And
Right.
memory care here is costing about $250,000. So, it's about 20 grand a month. So you just
Yeah.
240 a year or 250 a year. 4 years of memory care, there goes $1 million. And if you
Yeah.
go, say, easy math, 12 years would be $3 million in long-term care. So a lot of folks now, instead of buying long-term care insurance, are considering using a Medicaid asset protection trust.
Yeah. How often do those things change? Like if people have made a plan 5 years ago, is it a one and done type thing, or is it really you need to keep on top of it because 7 years
It
down the line, who knows?
I think it's sort of like a garden because you need to pull the weeds. You need to be meeting with your financial planner and your attorney fairly often. Not often, but maybe once a year. Nobody wants to put all their assets in an irrevocable trust, right? But you do want to, depending on your health, you do want to scoot some money over year by year. And so we might have it, and it's going to vary by for everybody. You might have
Yeah.
it to where maybe you have $3 million in your personal control, and maybe you put $1 million in the irrevocable trust. Now you have 2 million, and you might just whittle it down. And if you see that your health's declining, you might put some more money in there. But there's a 5-year look back. So if you see that you're on a glide path that you're going to need to have care, then you need to remember you got to keep in mind that 5-year look back. It's imperfect, but we could have plenty of money liquid for you, but we also want to start to think about how much money that we ought to not have in our possession.
Yeah. It is people who are long time listeners. My background is on the project management side of financial services back when I had a career years ago. So I'm interested in this subject. Again, that was back in the UK, so the setup's somewhat different, but not completely different. But it was always interesting. I worked for time for the Financial Services Authority in the UK, so the SEC kind of equivalent, and we would do financial education pieces. They'd ask from volunteers around the businesses to deliver this kind of pre-packaged financial education program. And it was always interesting that even the like 101 level program that we were delivering, there was a clear difference between people who were kind of like leaning in and their eyes were opening a little bit. Oh, okay, this is like the gateway into something. And the other, I mean, maybe half, maybe three-quarters of the room where they were kind of leaning back and eyes were glazing over because I don't know what it is about the subject. I don't know whether it's the complexity or people's fear of making a decision that's really pretty impactful, or just the somewhat complicated language, because even a relatively straightforward concept is kind of bundled up in complicated language. But it really is a big difference between it's the minority of people who are kind of actively leaning in. So to be able to write something that cuts through and deliver it in a way through the TV stuff and the education stuff in a way that at least gets them to the table so that then you can start kind of taking some of that baggage away from them and keep them moving towards something. That idea of, hey, here's some digestible things that we can start the conversation with people, was that something you did right from the start, or was that kind of developed over the years of, okay, this message isn't landing, but this one is, so let's kind of double down on that?
Yeah, you got to kind of listen to yourself and see, just a lot of sales experience, and you see what resonates and what doesn't. There are always going to be the biggest things we face. Of course, there's the ignorance or the lack of information. I don't mean stupidity,
Mm,
I mean ignorance, not having the.
yeah, yeah.
There's also one of the biggest things we face is procrastination. So we'll meet with people and we'll show them what we can do. And we're not going to make off with your money. Your money is going to be at Schwab or Fidelity. The SEC requires us to use third-party custodians so we don't possess your
Mm,
money. So some people they already have their IRA at Schwab. Well, we'll just be listed as your advisor. If you ever don't like us, you just call Schwab and take us off the account, and we don't do anything without your permission. All our disclosures say that we have discretion, that we can make trades on your behalf. We're really not going to do that. It's not really a smart thing for us to do. Our disclosures will say we have discretion. We're not going to exercise discretion. We're going to make
yeah.
sure that you know that you agree to whatever we recommend. We'll recommend a couple different things. We'll recommend what we think that is the best thing for you because we're fiduciaries on the securities accounts. So yeah, we do face a lot of, the ignorance or the lack of information and then just the procrastination, which I kind of don't get the procrastination because if I'm going to put you in a better spot, if I'm going to save you $500,000 in taxes, or some people are saving a couple $1 million in taxes over their lifetimes, or we're going to save you an Illinois estate tax or save your kids from inheriting your taxes on your IRAs and 401ks and that. It's a frustration, really. The procrastination is a big issue for us.
Yeah. That one probably, I mean, we have the same, but doing this for 13 years or so now. I mean, we've got people who probably reached out to us at the same time that you wrote your first book and now are just having the conversation. Oh, I really need to get around to doing that. It's kind of like if you're not an emergency plumber and there's water pouring out of the wall, and sometimes, oh yeah, I'll definitely get to that tomorrow. And then another piece of paper goes on top and it just a year goes by.
There's a funny thing that just happened recently about a week or two ago. We have a phone calendar on our website, and a fireman from the Cleveland suburbs got on our phone calendar. Well, back when I came out with the fireman's book, I was targeting firemen that are in a labor union anywhere in the US. So unionized, full-time, not volunteer firemen, full-time union firemen. They tend to have, like in Chicago here, they'll have their $100,000 a year fireman job, and they'll be at the firehouse 24 hours, and then they'll have 48 hours off, and then they also get a couple weeks
Right,
vacation and things. But they get a pension that's like 85% of that. So maybe they get a pension for like 85 grand. And then they also have a deferred comp 457B, like a 401k. They plug that deferred comp full of money, and what they live on is their $100,000 fireman job. They pull it as much as they can into the deferred comp. They're also going to have an $85,000 pension later, just in round numbers. But on their
right,
2 days that they're not at the firehouse, they usually have something in the trades as an electrician or a carpenter or cutting
right,
concrete or something. They'll live on a lot of that tradesman income. Sometimes they may get paid in cash on that too, hint,
right.
hint.
Yeah,
So they have their 100,000 from the fire department that they plug as much of that as they can in the deferred comp, and then their days off they have their carpentry or bricklayer or whatever they're doing or home remodeling thing. And so they typically end up where they retire with that $85,000 pension and $1 million in deferred comp. So what we did is, but that's when they're unionized like that, like they're in Chicago. So what we did some years ago is and now you can do it chat GPT even easier, but I do some Google searches where are firemen the highest paid and they're in the union and they have a deferred comp, and Cleveland's one of the markets. So for a while we were running Facebook ads about the fireman's book in the Cleveland area, targeting firemen that were 55 to 70 or whatnot, or 55. I think on Facebook it's 55 to a bazillion years old. And so we did get opt-ins for that for a free download of the book. And what we would do is then there's a program we can run them through to see if they actually have any money. So a company called Catchlight is owned by Fidelity. We can
okay.
run your information through the computer and see if you have any money. It's kind of no privacy, right?
Right.
It's modeled data, but it's pretty accurate. And so then we would like FedEx, we try to get him on the phone calendar, we'd FedEx him a book and stuff. Well, this one guy, he opted in and I'd never talked to him before. And he just opted into a phone conversation and he said, oh, you know what? I got about 1 year and then I'm retired. And can you do this for me? Can you do that for me? So sometimes it can be a 4-year-old lead that comes back and the guy's like, oh, here's $1 million. And
Yeah,
his affinity to us is nobody else wrote the book for firemen. I'm the guy.
yeah.
I'm the guy that wrote the book for firemen's deferred comp, so I must be the expert, even though I'm in Chicago.
And right. And that point, man, if everyone who's listened to this, I mean, because the listeners to this mainly are people who are on our list and have thought about a book at that point or at some point or other. If the takeaway, if nothing else, that fireman, regardless of all of the other stuff that you've done, all of the other channels, that person, their exposure to the funnel that they've seen, you're the fireman guy.
Yeah,
And so many people miss that because we're seeing it from the inside. Like everyone who works in the office sees all of the books and all of the channels and all the TV stuff, and you could be something to a broad swathe of people and forget to see it from the way that people are coming in. And that specificity, the thing that you saw in the first place was fireman related. I'm sure the email follow up was fireman related. The whatever contacts there is throughout that last 4 years have been fireman related. I mean, it's just such a dialed in message. And then when he comes in and eventually you get on have the meeting with him, you know where he's come from. It's almost like having X-ray specs. of saying, I can make these assumptions about you. They're probably pretty accurate. Let's talk
We
about where you are.
we had the phone meeting with a gentleman from Cleveland, and I have like five monitors here, So he goes, yes, I get the deferred comp program through the department. I go, oh, with Nationwide? He goes, yeah, because they're all with Nationwide, and inside
Right.
base. Oh, okay, great. And then I'm asked, and then he said something about the union. I'm like, oh, you're an IAFF, right? And I pull up that just to have it on one of my screens. He goes, yeah, and they go, what? And I forget. I'm sorry. In Ohio, they call the plan the what now? And he's like, oh, it's the Ohio firefighter something fund. I Google it, pulls it all up, and he goes, yeah, we go lobby the legislature every year, as a union. And I Googled like Ohio Firefighters Union, and it pulls it all up. And he goes,
Right.
and so I have that right in front of me over here, like on the Google deal. So it has like the Google search results, and it has that panel where it has like the map and all the info. And
Yeah.
he goes, "Yeah, we go down there to the bot down by the Capitol, and I see the address for the Union Hall." He goes, "We go to the Union Hall, and we go put on our, they have like all the matching T-shirts that say they're
Yeah.
firemen, and they all show up at the Capitol, and they tell them the legislature what they want one day a year." And he goes, and I can't remember the name of it now, but he's like, "Yeah, they got an office right. The office is right down there by the Capitol." I go, "Oh yeah, it's on Pine Street." He's talking about Columbus, Ohio. I go, oh yeah, it's on Pine Street, right by the Capitol, isn't it? He's like, whatever the name of the street was. He's like, yeah, it's on Pine Street. And I go,
Yeah. Yeah.
oh yeah, and you got to go down there and tell them what for one day a year. I mean, unless you're on duty at the firehouse, but at least you got two out of three of you. You guys do 24 on and 48 off. He's like, yeah,
Yeah.
whatever the story was on their schedule. That's what they do in Chicago.
That
And
bridging,
you go, yeah.
or
So at
the,
least you
the
got two. Yeah, you got two out of three of you at least can get your butt down there, put on the t-shirt, and then afterwards, you guys, your union hall has a bar, right? Yeah, it's got a bar in there because all the union halls have a
because
bar.
they all do. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
That,
I've been to the plumbers hall here in Chicago, and they for a charity thing, and they have a bar. So all the
right.
unions have a bar. So
It's like the UK equivalent would be like working men's clubs, which again is probably a bit of a thing of the past now, but that would be the same. Like all of the miners, the place to go would be the place that had the bar, and there's a bit of union shop talk first, but then let's
well,
get to the
here,
important business
yeah,
drinking.
here in many states in the U.S., you have to belong to the union to be able to get the job. So
Right.
call it closed shop. So in Illinois is a closed shop state. You have to, if you want to work
Okay.
for like Chicago Fire Department, you have to join the union. Other
Yeah.
states, they've gotten rid of that, and they've come up with right to work laws, but still the unions are very powerful, especially in the northern states, other states too.
Yeah.
But and in public service, they're pretty powerful too. So, but the firemen are usually unionized, but you don't only want a unionized fireman. You also want them to be in a high income state because you want to have the mass amount of money. So,
Right.
you know,
Yeah. And that type of kind of chess playing of thinking, okay, there's a world full of pieces, but which of the moves or which of the pieces that group together to make the most sense? I think there's a lot of time that people think about a book as a funnel and think of it as, okay, I can see it as a good tool, but don't, it's the next step of thinking about the specificities. Okay, we could do anything. We don't want to do everything. So what is the thing that we should do? And you just demonstrated the exact thing that we spend a lot of time talking about. We could do anything. So let's do the thing that when we stitch it together is the most likely to fall in place because the book piece is just the beginning piece of the journey. When we actually get them on the phone, which is what we want to do, like the point is the conversation, let's get them to that call where they're coming in somewhat familiar, where we can make the assumptions about the language, where we can talk about the likelihood that they go into a bar in the union house, that the congressional place is on this particular street. We can make those assumptions that just oil the wheels of that conversation in a way that isn't, we're not trying to hoodwink someone in any way. It's just we're trying to get to the meaningful conversation, and the commonality of language gets us there quicker. So if we can set up something that facilitates that, it makes more sense than doing something generic.
I told you before we started recording, I was kind of a Dan Kennedy fan, or
Yeah.
that's part of my origin story into all this of sorts. And so he had a thing, he said that anything that happens on accident, make it happen on purpose. So we would randomly get a fireman come in with $1 million, and it's like, well, gee, why don't we just become the financial advisor for the fireman?
Right.
Instead of just, hoping anything that happens on accident, see if you can make it happen on purpose. One of the best uses of one of the 90-minute books is lead generation. So it can be Facebook ads, Instagram ads for your book, and you have a landing page and you collect their information and give them a digital download, offer them the phone calendar. If you can figure out if they're a really good fit for you, you might FedEx them a book. There is a
Yeah.
FedEx does have a 3 day, they have a 3 day delivery called FedEx Saver. And if you do a little bit of FedEx, if you just call them and negotiate a little bit better rate, I think we spend $8 locally to send a FedEx. And
All right.
sometimes for a FedEx Saver, and they tend to get delivered oftentimes 1 day later or 2 days later. It's not always 3 days. So
Right.
oftentimes short haul like that, a lot of times it's 1 day delivery.
And that idea of how you're actually using it, again, we talked about it a few times, the idea that you've got multiple delivery mechanisms, the digital version, super cost effective, broad scale. But actually, to send someone a physical copy, that's why these cut through more than the same words on a website or on a YouTube video. Like there's something about a physical element of a book. Tie that in with sending the physical ones to people where there's a higher value to try and move that conversation along forwards. When people come into the meeting and you actually using the book and say, okay, like we said here, and just that physical act of reinforcing something
When they,
physical,
oftentimes when they come in, they bring the book with them too. Uh,
highlighted and underlined.
Yeah, they have like yeah, in the Escape Illinois book, I just kept it brief and gave the essential information. That thing's only like 43 pages, but it's got a cool cover and on TV or on Facebook or Instagram, it gets a lot of
Right.
opt-ins. We
Stands
do
out.
also we also do have a radio show where we offer it. We get some folks to go to a website to get that there. The Illinois Grave Robbers book is just over 200 pages. And what's great about a book, and maybe it's better to have a 200-page book. I mean, the 90-minute book set makes it easy if you want to have it longer. It's not that difficult. What's good about dropping a 200-pound or a 200-page or 200-pound, a 200-page book on somebody about estate planning for Illinois residents, they're just like, Uncle, I don't want to set this. You do it. And I'm not an
Yeah.
attorney. I disclaim that I'm not an attorney. We work with law firms that implement this. But you tell them about things that they're not even going to use. Like a lot of people will never use an irrevocable trust. A lot of people will never use a South Dakota dynasty trust, even because that's a whole thing. We teach them how you can use a South Dakota dynasty trust even if you're an Illinois resident. And South Dakota dynasty trust, they never die. The trust goes on forever. They're infinite.
Ah, okay.
So they don't trigger, they don't expel funds and create unnecessary taxes. You teach them about a Cook Islands trust. They're never going to set up a Cook Islands trust, most people. A Cook Islands trust costs about 25 grand to set up. It's the jurisdiction is the Cook Islands. And you
Right.
can legally put money offshore. You have to file a bunch of stuff with the IRS. It's a little expensive, but Cook Islands Trust is used for people that want to protect their assets. Say if you have $1 billion, you're not going to just leave all your money sitting in the US waiting for a lawsuit. You're going to move a whole bunch of it to the Cook Islands through Cook Islands Trust. So there's things once you give them all that information, they're like, oh, wait a minute, I'm blown away. Whoa, why is my advisor telling me about this? They're never going to
Yeah.
set up a South Dakota Dynasty Trust or Cook Islands Trust. We've never set one up because nobody's ever really wanted to do it, but they want to be dazzled with the information.
It's that people make the decision that, okay, I think that Scott's the person I want to work with. I'm confident in my decision. I just want to get through to the finish line with nothing evidencing that I've made a bad decision. I kind of want that reinforcing points that I've made a good decision. And the book is an element, it's another pretty strong check mark in that really the job of work of the book isn't to have them read it and educate themselves in DIY stuff, because for most of us, that's too complicated. It's to give them something that makes it easy to get on the list in the first place, that reinforces that they're making the right decisions to the point that they get on the phone and then are having that conversation and it moves forward from there. I think that's the benefit of sharing.
Have you ever had something around the house you wanted to fix and you order the thing to fix it on Amazon
Right.
and
Yeah.
then it just sits there?
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's like, oh,
Right.
magic widget. I'm concerned about
Yeah.
the Illinois estate tax. I'm gonna get this Illinois grave robbers book. Then they get it and they're
Yeah.
like, oh, it's 200 pages. And then they read a little
Isn't
bit
there
of
a
it.
quick route? Oh, I just call Scott. Let me do
Then
that
they
instead.
look at it like, oh, yeah, Illinois estate tax. Oh, it's going to be a problem. Even because what people don't, we make a point of this. If somebody has $1 million net worth today, it's likely that that net worth doubles in about 10 years and doubles again in about another 10 years. So if you're 60 years of age today and you have $1 million net worth, if you're invested properly, by the time you're 80, it's going to be 4 million bucks, most likely.
Right.
If you die in Illinois, you and your spouse die in Illinois right at 4 million, you no tax to the state of Illinois for Illinois state tax. If you go one penny over, then you could send about $285,000 to the state of Illinois for estate tax.
Yeah.
And it goes up from there.
And those cliffs are, I mean, that's a big trigger point. People don't realize. They kind of
Yeah,
think of everything as
yeah,
banded, but
Illinois, if you go one penny over, they tax the entire estate.
yeah,
So there's a thing we call a Tucker Shelter Trust that we can set up for couples. This only works for couples to get what's called portability. So instead of being in a $4 million net, net worth, it moves them to the $8 million. But you have to have the Tucker Shelter Trust to do that. Otherwise, you don't get that portability. They've set us up to fail, really, in Illinois.
right.
And then beyond that, if you're concerned about you're going to break that 8 million later on, then that's where we need to consider irrevocable trust and move some money out of the estate more than 3 years before you're passing.
Yeah. And it's one of those areas where it's a rabbit hole of rabbit warren of it depends for each individual person. But the benefit is, and I mean, we've demonstrated here, what you've done is like a rabbit warren, there's lots of different entry points into it. And that person, as they come in through that route, to have something that kind of resonates with the conversation that's going on in their head. And when they come in, you can make some good assumptions about what they're feeling and what's the best kind of jumping off point for that conversation. Be effective. I was getting to this point in the show and glance up at the clock and realize how fast time goes when we're talking like this. It'd be great to do a follow-up show in maybe do one in a couple of months after the Grave Robbers book is out there and starting to get some feedback, because I'm really interested to see what the vibe is from people coming from the Escape Illinois versus the Grave Robbers type one. As I'm saying that out loud, I'm very conscious that I'm saying grave robbers, not grave diggers, because that's two very different groups of people. But coming in with those particular routes. And the other thing that we should talk about next time as well is this idea of stitching all of the pieces together, because you've got a lot of assets. I mean, you're super prolific in what you're putting out there. So how they all stitch together. So for example, the fact that the new book is coming out, are you using that to go back out to the old group of unconverted people and try and start that conversation, and what's kicking off around the new ads and how they're all working together? So if you're up for it, it'll be great to circle back in a couple of months and do a follow-up.
I think it'll be about 3 months. We're going to have it on TV, on the new TV shows out. They have to go through editing and things.
Nice. Yeah, that'd be really interesting for people. Where can people find out more about what's a good place for people to go if they've been listening and want to kind of
Our,
hear about what you're doing?
our website is scotttuckersolutions.com. So scotttuckersolutions.com.
Perfect. And as always, I'll put a link. I'll actually put all of the covers for the books in the show notes so people can see them. And then straight below that, I'll put the link to the website so people can follow through. I love these shows because it's good to see people actually using them. The worst scenario is people get to the finish line and think, oh, thank goodness for that, the book's done. And then put it on the side and a year goes by and they forget to use it. You guys are the exact opposite. So really excited to share some of your stories with people and show them how it should be done.
Thank you. Yes.
All right, brother. Well, thank you. Thanks for your time. We'll catch up with you soon. Everyone, thanks for listening. Definitely check out the show notes because there'll be some good links in there. And then we'll catch everyone in the next one.
Thanks so much.